The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Hello and welcome to a special Soccer to the Max instant reaction, hot take feeling on the U.S. Women's National Team 3-1 win against New Zealand, and also talking about the two MLS games from Wednesday and some Alexi Lalas having big U.S. Men's National Team comments that got some U.S. Men's National Team players talking about it in the media too. So, of course, we warned you there may not be a show on Sunday because of Hurricane Irma. That did not. Of course, Hurricane Irma came, took out all the power in South Florida, and we didn't start getting that back, at least in the Miami area, until like Tuesday or so. Some people never lost power at all, which is cool for them. But unfortunately, I was one of those that was affected, and Erik also got affected over there where he is. So that is why you did not hear from us until now. So, and basically by the time I got home on Wednesday after everything, I was like, the last thing I want to do is do a podcast right now. So, hey, we're here talking U.S. Men's National Team. Erik is here. Rachael, of course, is here. Well, guys, I mean, pretty dominant performance, I'd say, from the women's national team here.
Yeah, I mean, they in the pregame show, they hit it perfectly, saying, the last few matches, it's been slow starts, whether it be Tournament of Nations or just friendlies. But this time, they came out of the gate swinging, and I think they're finally realizing, I know this week that the official dates for the FIFA Women's World Cup got set. Maybe they saw that and were like, yeah, we should probably be getting more serious. All in all, it was a pretty good match tonight. Not too many hiccups. I mean, Kelly O'Hara got her 100th cap. Sofia Huerta made her U.S. Women's National Team debut. And Julie Ertz, man, she is thriving in that midfield position, and you have to thank her club, the Chicago Red Stars, for moving her there.
Yeah, certainly. She was the player of the game by a wide margin in this one. She had the 2 goals that were pretty much what kind of set things up for the U.S. Of course, New Zealand got one back that made things interesting for a little bit until Alex Morgan put it away again, and they almost got a second one, did New Zealand, at the end, but the mistake that Alyssa Naeher made on the first one, she corrected on the second attempt, and right there at the death kept it 3-1. Good to see Alex Morgan scoring again, but Julie Ertz, both times it was her taking something from another player and just scoring. You get the header from Lindsey Horan, and then you get the Rapinoe shot, or it's the Rapinoe header, and then it's the
No, you were right the first time.
Yeah. Rapinoe hits the header off the post, and then Julie Ertz just comes in and smacks it. Nobody was stopping that. So, yeah, I mean, she was everywhere. She was making plays from midfield, covering when she needed to. The defense really didn't have much to do in this game. I almost feel like Alyssa Naeher made that mistake because she's probably bored the whole time, not having to deal with much of anything. But anybody else, got to be worried about Taylor Smith, though, with that hip.
She took a bad knock, but hopefully she's okay and it's nothing terribly serious. But there was one thing that I was happy about and one thing that I'm kind of mad about. As far as with the pace of play, I also like Mallory Pugh doing what my top 11 team does. In that attacking third, get it out wide, almost near that end line, and make that perfect centering pass to set up an opportunity. She made quite a few of those, especially in the first half. That helped set up the goals. But I'm still mad at New Zealand because I can't think of any catchy female equivalent. I've been racking my brain for over a month, and it's just nothing sticking.
Apparently their nickname is the Ferns, which is weird. In its
Okay,
own sense. So,
look, male ferns is not as catchy as male men. Come on, Sean.
no,
That
it's
does
not,
nothing
but I'm trying to... I mean, the guys get the all whites, and the women get the Ferns. I mean, two very weird nicknames.
Well, actually, the reason why is because the rugby team is nicknamed the All Blacks because they were dressed in all black. That dates
Right.
back to around the turn of the 20th century. So the soccer team wearing all white was a derivation of that. And if you look at all the New Zealand women's national teams, they all have a derivation of fern. Silver fern for netball, tall ferns for basketball, the ferns for soccer. You get the idea.
Makes sense. I'm just, from this part of the world over here where we don't, ferns are just trees. It's still kind of weird.
Well,
I don't, it does not intimidate me at all, if that's what that's supposed to.
It's New Zealand. I mean, give them some credit. All they have is pretty much rugby and trees.
Fair enough. Mega Rapinoe, again, just killing it over there on that right side.
Yeah, and if there's any way that I think the Seattle Reign could potentially get a playoff position, it would be because of her. But, internationally, this has been her year. I mean, take out the goal scorers, Megan Rapinoe, aside from the goal scorers, she had one heck of a game. She didn't score, but she took shot after shot. She wasn't wasting any time.
Yeah, she took the free kicks. Some of them were extremely important. Some of them didn't go her way, but she was involved in pretty much everything for this team for the most part. And, Kelly O'Hara got to do some things on her 100 cap too. So.
And then get injured.
Yes, and then get injured, sadly, along with Taylor Smith, who I thought played well until the injury, helping Mallory Pugh on that side, kind of bombing forward. And you mentioned Sophia Huerta. She was the main reason for that goal from Alex Morgan, and she was pretty active after coming in as well, making crosses and doing recovery work on that side. Seems like she's going to fit in pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, if you play her in the right position, she's not natural. That was her first time ever playing in a right back position. And if there's anything we know about playing out of position, it seems that the foreign head coaches for the U.S. national teams both love doing that to their players.
Yeah, I think it's more of a where can we put her in that she could actually play instead of being the third or fourth person on the depth chart. So, as you mentioned, they moved Julie Ertz over. It's not always the worst thing to learn a new position. It's just sometimes you try to. It's time consuming, but if you have the skill set for it, it works, right? But if you try to do square peg round hole, then it doesn't. How much were we hating on Graham Zusi right back? And for the most part, he made it work.
I still say that experiment isn't over, but I do see your point.
Well, no, it's not over, but it seems like at least Bruce Arena is stuck on that's where he's going to play. So, The thing with New Zealand not really giving a whole lot on the defensive end for the U.S., I mean, it's kind of hard to analyze on that perspective, but do you feel any better or worse about Naeher being there as the goalkeeper? She certainly could have done more on that goal that did go in.
Yeah, and she wasn't tested much tonight either, so it's tough to really give her a fair evaluation. I still hold out hope that Jane Campbell could be the one in net during the World Cup in 2 years. I hold out hope that Hope Solo could be back, but, that's highly unlikely. But, I think it's time to see what Jane Campbell can do. Give her a good shot in net. She's been doing fine for Houston lately.
I mean, now would be the time. Before you get into qualifying and before you get into you're clearly in that World Cup year, take that time to try her out, see if she works. I get it that perhaps Jill feels like she might have some kind of I've got to give the veteran players one more shot or whatever, and then let them go by after the next World Cup. But don't you want to have the best players you can have in all 11 spots? And yeah, most of those spots are taken. But, just she's giving chances to some other players away from goalkeeper. I feel like I agree with you. Goalkeeper needs to get that fair shake too.
I'm going back, and I'm sort of haunted by what happened way back in 2007. Jill Ellis keeps up this mentality, you could get a repeat of what happened in that World Cup. Yes, veteran players are all well and good, but Sean, you said it best. You're for a World Cup, especially now that you're in a position for the first time in a long time as defending champions, you want your best 11, not your longest tenured 11.
Yeah, and I also want to give a shout out to, I thought Lindsay Horan played really well too. She, not only in attacking and being there on the corners, but she was setting up play even from starting out from the back and then would start going forward. And then if, you needed her to kind of hold the ball up and then get the other ones, the wingers going forward. So I think it seems like at least Jill's figured out the formation that works.
I still wish she would bring in some different players that deserve call-ups, though, in the NWSL. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen now because I think she's too hard-headed, but, there are still players that have just dominated the league, and I said them before, and I'll say them again. Shea Groom, FC Kansas City, Angela Salem, Boston Breakers, two very good athletes in the league who are eligible to represent the United States, but have not gotten the opportunity.
Yeah, and then that's what was funny to me is when they were doing that breakdown at the beginning of, what Jill Ellis has done for the team and how the team has been in 2017. It's like you go, oh, she's trying out new players. You literally put 3 people on that trying out new players thing. That's the amount of new people you're debuting for the squad in the entire year of 2017. I mean, geez, that's kind of a really small number.
Yeah, I mean, look at what Bruce Arena and Jurgen Klinsmann do with their January camps in January. They bring in all these new MLS players. Jill Ellis can do that with the league.
Yeah, and then in Gold Cup you had quite a few debuts as well. So, I mean, it wasn't just a one-time a year thing that they did. I mean, he did that throughout the year. I know, again, you want to win those glorified friendly tournaments or whatever, but why not go out there and try out a few new players from the NWSL that are on form, and then mix them in with the veteran players and see how they do. I mean, you can't. I feel like you can't just bring in a Taylor Smith and go, okay, I did my part to bring in fresh blood. You got to do a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Especially when you have so many viable options in a really, first of all, you can't spell glorified friendly without friendly. Second of all, if you have a domestic schedule set up like it is, to where the women's national team are playing 12, 14 games a year, that's plenty of opportunity, especially when you're right at the midpoint in a World Cup cycle.
Yeah, you still got time before even qualifying starts, and even then, let's be honest, the CONCACAF for the women is
Terrible?
not. Yeah, it's, if you think CONCACAF for the men is bad, it is what it is for the women, because as you heard with the New Zealand, and I like the fact that they brought that up with the New Zealand team. You've had to have players retire. You had to have players go out there, and I wouldn't be surprised if you have more. I mentioned this in our Twitter chat, that I wouldn't be surprised if you do have more New Zealand women pro players than you do the men, because of the pay, and how it's not fair that the New Zealand Federation doesn't have enough money to even get them enough friendlies. They hadn't played since March. I mean, jeez.
Well, again, you have more women professional players than men because, and this has been brought up ever since Australia moved to the Asian Confederation away from Oceania. All the Oceanic countries now, New Zealand being the biggest one, they're amateur. And you heard the statistic, 150,000 players in the entire country. That's a pretty significant number to think about if you're talking about legitimately competing on a global stage.
Yeah, did you guys both watch the halftime thing with Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe?
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was interesting that they did the common goal thing with Juan Mata and gave the money, and that they kind of use that as a platform to talk about the equal pay thing again. And it's just, that is so striking that you're talking about thousands to hundreds of thousands. That just is so
Well,
unbelievable to me in
even
2017.
yeah, and even then, not just thousands to hundreds of thousands. You're talking, or to thousands, it's hundreds to hundreds of thousands.
Yeah,
Because if
or
you think about it, like,
millions for some folks.
yeah, because if you think about it, say for example, you look at a guy like Neymar, you take 1% of his annual wage, that's what, 35 million, 3.5. Yeah, you're talking about 350 grand.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're talking 1% for even your top played NWSL players, that's like what, $250 at the most?
And I wonder how, talking about pay, like, we talk about having these new players. I wonder how that goes in, because obviously once, how that works with NWSL and USSF, apparently if you start adding more players, then do they go under the whole U.S. Women's National Team salary? They get paid more, meaning the Soccer Federation now has to pay their salary. So you're having to have more players get their salary paid for every time you introduce a player. I wonder if that has any kind of factor into that at all, as to how many new players she introduces because of that as well.
Given the current issues with USSF and what's going on the men's side, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too for NWSL. You've got, 2 game weeks left. You got 3 teams fighting for 2 spots. It seems like, sadly, Megan Rapinoe's Seattle Reign will not be making it, though. I mean, do you think it's a big blow to the league if, say, you have one of your biggest women's national team stars having her team not make it, or you think they're fine just from the 4 teams that are seemingly going to make it?
I personally would consider it a little bit of a blow, but I think that this is an opportunity, and I don't know how much this has been bandied about, but I think that with the NWSL, you can look at, if not next season, within the next couple of seasons, maybe expanding the playoffs just slightly, because you're not losing any of the competitiveness.
I mean, you'd have to do the MLS thing, right, where you have the 4th or 5th person play each other to get in.
Yeah, it's currently a 12-team league. You would do just like MLS, and you have a top 6.
Yeah, you could. Rachel, what do you think? Is it necessarily bad if, say, the Reign don't make it?
For their club or for the league?
For the league, yeah. I mean, obviously for the club, they want to make it, obviously, but...
I mean, for the league, I think it's tough to expand when you only have 10 clubs.
Yeah.
I think the playing for the 4th position doesn't sound like a horrible idea. I think it could work. But it all comes down to the number of clubs you have, and only 10, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, you would be following most of the U.S. playoff models of half your league gets in or whatever, which is fine. And we've seen this in so many other sports. I think at this point people should basically just expect that when you have a U.S. league that they do the whole half of the league gets in the playoffs. But I don't have a problem with it necessarily. That's something they could explore for next year if they want to, or I don't know if that has to... I don't know if that has to be collectively bargained or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you're right about collective bargaining. That's going to be one issue, but if you're expanding it, even at half, you cut it off at 5, that gives you 1 extra standalone game, 1 extra TV game, and you're only expanding the season by a week.
Yeah, certainly. And I mean, that's also good for them that they have all those playoff games on Lifetime as well. So that's a plus. I'm glad to see that for them. But let's move over to the U.S. men's national team side here for a little bit. Alexi Lalas decided to come out and basically play the game of, you are going to get an angry statement, you are going to get an angry statement, and you are going to get an angry statement, and the whole U.S. men's national team is going to get called a bunch of tattooed millionaires, to which Josie Altidore said, well, I don't even have any tattoos. And, you know, it's Michael Bradley was talking about, I don't really care. He has the right to say what he wants to say. The lion doesn't need to be listening to the sheep, sort of making kind of almost a snide remark to the fans as well, not just Lawless in that respect. Alejandro Bedoya was much more positive about it, just kind of saying that, hey, we need to play better, and he's just trying to let us know that. And Christian Pulisic says he's not going to lose any sleep over whatever Alexi Lalas has to say. So that's also after Dortmund suffered a 3-1 loss in the Champions League. So
Ouch.
it's sad for him there. But Rachel, I mean, Alexi kind of has a point, right? I mean,
Yes and no. I agree with him when he says that they're a soccer generation that has been, basically handed the key. They just need to take the key and unlock the door. But, God, it's not criticism. That he didn't give criticism. He's just an angry Irish American yelling at a TV's camera. That's basically what it was. And I mean, the whole "you're just a bunch of tattooed millionaires" thing, it's like, dude, you sound like my dad. And then on top of that, poor Christian Pulisic's been scoring goal after goal in World Cup qualifiers, keeping hopes alive, and he goes after him too. Like, come on, man.
and I don't think it's Pulisic's fault necessarily. He wasn't played in the best position. Both Honduras and Costa Rica figured out, well, if you kick him around, he's going to get frustrated, and he's not used to that. He's also, let's be honest, the team in Dortmund that he plays with, you're talking about some world-class players over there. Not that, the U.S. doesn't have any, but you're talking about a different depth of field there. People aren't going after Pulisic necessarily. They're going after some of the other players, which allows Pulisic to have that ability to do well for Dortmund. Pulisic is kind of that go-to guy for the U.S., so you control him, you kind of control what the U.S. do. So now it's up to Bruce Arena to figure out with these last two games, especially in Panama, where you have to get the 3 points. There is no if and buts about that. You got to figure out how to make the team not just about him. You got to make it a team. Make the formation to where it's helping out various parts, not just let's focus on one guy and hope he does everything. But Erik, I mean, where do you stand on the comments here?
Personally, it was very fitting that he ended the whole quasi-rant with "get off my lawn," because, yeah, in between all the commercials and, let's face it, him always being that historical toe-the-line, borderline heel announcer for the networks, this is what you expect out of him. Am I glad that he went ham? Yes. But I also agree with Rachel. He called out the wrong people. And I'm not just talking about players, because those like Christian Pulisic, he's been balling. And again, he's a teenager called up in an incredible task and say, hey, you be the focal point and help salvage us qualifying to our World Cup and keep our streak alive. You go do that. So, I mean, if you're going to call out the players, call out everybody up top, because this just even goes beyond the players, beyond Bruce Arena. Let's face it, from the top down, U.S. Soccer, our federation, has been in a bit of a mess these past couple of years. Guess what? Sowing those seeds, this is the crop we're reaping right now.
Yeah, and speaking of that crop, I mean, you're seeing a lot of CONCACAF players, outside of Mexico, and even them, they're getting some of these players into MLS. So those, how many Costa Ricans are in it playing in MLS right now? I mean, so think about that. Those players are coming to the U.S. League to get better and get out of their league, where, especially for, say, Honduras or some of the other countries, it's not nowhere near as good. Whereas those big national team players should be aspiring to play beyond MLS, and they don't. or you're in the case of a Clint Dempsey who already plied his trade somewhere else and he's living out his last years in MLS, which is fine. But it's at Rachel's point that she always makes is, we should have more players out there playing in Europe and other places.
And I think part of that is a lack of, okay, we supposedly, at least for now, fix the problem with our coach for the men's national team. Guess what? We don't have a technical director. How are you really going to build some sort of a plan for the future and avoid situations like this without a technical director? And that's not even really mentioned.
I don't know that the technical director thing is that big a deal.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that it's the be-all, end-all, but I'm saying it's part of it. Because it's talking about, again, maybe building connections to Europe and doing more things with our academy and our youth teams, which, to an extent, they're great, but you'd even have to admit they've stalled a little bit.
Yeah, they're still getting to quarterfinals. We'll have to find out in a month about, what the U17 team does, but at least, and I think that's the point, though. I think that there's not growth. It's just it's complacency. It's stagnation. It's staying in place. You're not really, oh, great, the U.S. goes and wins a Gold Cup. Well, I mean, really, this is the U.S. You should be winning Gold Cups. It's about how many times does the U23 team not qualify for the Olympics now? I mean,
it's been a little while.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the Olympics are what they are. That seems to matter a lot more on the women's side of things because they don't have as many competitions. But it's still the fact that in certain levels, you're not even qualifying for the tournament that you should be qualifying for.
Yeah, and for the men's side, that your Olympic team, your U23s, that's technically the last step before the senior national team. So if you're having this much of a gap where your U17s, we'll see if they can continue their limited success. The U20s are having limited success. Then you have a drop-off. Then you have your senior team limited success. You see the pattern here?
Yeah. And, it's not that, look, let's be fair. There's been times where if the U.S. has had a battle in qualifying, they tend to do better in the World Cup than when they've just breezed through.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's just the way they've played. You hope that they get it together here when come October. And things are obviously, it's do or die at that point. Speaking of October, just to wrap up everything about the national team on both sides, the women have 5 games left in this calendar. They play New Zealand on Tuesday, which we'll be here to discuss that. Then of course they play 2 games against South Korea. And then they play 2 games against Canada in November, and I think that will probably close them out until you get to January. So, what do you think about that slate, Rachel? I mean, obviously the European teams are dealing with coming off the Euro, so it's kind of just having to do with what you can. Would you want to see them facing better competition than, say, New Zealand, South Korea, and Canada?
I mean, I'd like to see them facing some CONCACAF teams, even though, competition in CONCACAF isn't, huge for the women's game, but, still with qualifying coming up, I think that would be a good help.
What do you think, Rachel or Erik? You go the Jurgen route where you need to be always doing better, or you think this is kind of just enough? You're not even in qualifying yet.
No, I mean, this is basically the best of what's available, and you do get in or that lead in towards qualifying with the 2 matches against Canada. I think those 2 are the best to close out the calendar, so that way you know where you are against some of the middle tier or higher end of the rest of the CONCACAF teams, but I mean, it's the best of slim pickings at this point.
All right, Rachel. It's late here while we're doing this. It's 1 a.m. Of course, they started that game at 10 p.m. Eastern. Oh, Lord, could you guys please start games a little early? Oh, but
It's
so
Friday night. I mean, they started it late enough so that way I can get some Moscato in my system. So can you give them some credit, please?
I guess, but you could also drink the Moscato earlier too.
Yes, but you have any idea how crowded Popeyes are on a Friday night? Okay? You try dealing with that.
Well, you're not wrong. Well, all right, Rachel, we're gonna talk some MLS here. You get you some sleep, and I think you said you wouldn't be able to be with us for Sunday, but
Probably not Tuesday as well. I'm going to be working both nights.
sad times.
Miss Fancy Pants and her big girl job.
Thank
Hey,
you.
you gotta pay the bills, man.
I got to pay my college. That's what I got to do.
Yep, those loans are awful.
Yeah,
Don't
and
mind
nice
me.
$200 I get to spend on my GRE test.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. College
Wait.
is great, kids.
Wait, they went up? Oh, good Lord.
Oh, yeah. They went up all right. And the first choice school that I want to go to for grad school requires the GRE.
Well, you know where to turn to with math. That's all I'm saying.
And alcohol?
Yes, that too.
18 more, 17 now. 17 more days till the 21st, guys.
Hey, not too far away.
I wonder if I can have any connections from the stuff that I've found in Germany.
Hook a sister up. You guys enjoy the rest of the show.
Later.
Later, guys.
Keep an ear out, because I'm going to be spitting out something and I want your opinion. So just keep an eye on it and, yeah, tweet at me.
Yes, comrade. Adios, amigos.
Adios.
Adios.
Well, Erik, Atlanta has now scored 10 goals and allowed 0 in 2 games at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They, quote-unquote, said it is even louder in there than in the previous stadium. So, go bigger, just get louder and get crazier. Pretty good for Atlanta.
Well, first of all, it's nice to see an Atlanta's team score a touchdown against a New England team and actually win the game for once, instead of breaking my heart. And also, of course,
Man, that never dies.
and I mean, of course it's louder because, dome rather than open air Bobby Dodd. This is good. And especially as you get later in the year where there's going to be more opportunities to have the roof closed. If they wind up finishing above the red line and making the playoffs and hosting a match or two, it's going to be nuts.
Yeah, that gets capped off with them breaking the 21-year-old record of most tickets sold to an MLS game. It's not the all-time attendance MLS single game record. That's 92,000 for Chivas USA and New England Revolution at the LA Coliseum. Of course, that had to do with also being part of a doubleheader with Barcelona and Club America, which most of those people were there for Club America, but they've now sold
But hey,
more.
that was an epic match, though.
Yes, it was. I totally agree with you there, but this does break the record set in 1996 by the LA Galaxy for their first ever match at the Rose Bowl. They've now sold 69,256 tickets for tomorrow's game against your Orlando City.
Oh, Christ. No.
Imagine 70,000 people just...
70,000 people and they hate us. Yeah, well, we're probably going to get beat 4-0. Great. Whoop-de-doo. Fantastic. Well, I'm glad I have Moscato left.
That being said, going to that game for a second, you've got Joseph Martinez scoring from an angle that he shouldn't score for the first goal. Then you get a penalty on a handball. Then you get the stamp by Kofi that gets him after a review. This is some of these times where I feel like, especially on the handball, the referee should just use the earpiece and trust the people upstairs. They had to do a 5-minute injury time, stoppage time in the first half because he took so long having to go to the board twice for both of those red cards.
Honestly, dude, you see the video screens? Now, I know MLS has their dedicated one for VAR, but I mean, Jesus, look up.
Well, no, for me, for the handball, those referees upstairs should be able to tell you if that's a handball or not. They don't need you to go over there. Now, for the other one, where it's a double stamp or whatever, I could understand that one a little bit, but it's like when you're having to do 5 minutes of stoppage time in the first half, there's a problem there. He's also very card happy in that game.
Well, what did they say as far as VAR minimum impact for maximum benefit? I mean, for the case of the handball, they need to drill that kind of into the crew's heads a little bit more.
Yeah, and I've seen them be calling that a lot more recently, so that's good on their part. Just Atlanta went nuts after you're playing a team with 9 men, and New England still has not won on the road this year.
Well, again, you said yourself, you're playing a 9-man New England. At this point, you go top 11 mode and see if you can get 10.
Yeah, that was not going to happen for Atlanta on this night, and Vancouver just made Minnesota look bad. They scored early. They had 2 by the 30-minute mark, and then Brick Shea puts in a header in about the 87th minute. I really couldn't tell you if Minnesota did anything. I don't know that they even had a shot on goal. They were just anemic, just absolutely anemic on this one. So, yeah, Vancouver strolled to their win, and that's all you really need to know about that one, honestly. So that's I need to go look at the standings here. I think that was one of those.
Yeah, because the good news for Minnesota, your Twins are holding the second wild card spot, and hockey season starts in a month. So there's that.
That's true. This means that Vancouver is now first in the West going into the weekend.
What?
Yes, they are first in the West.
How?
Going into the weekend, they are tied with Portland on points, but they have the points per game. Their points per game average is higher, and they also have a better goal difference than Portland as well. So they have a 6-goal difference. Portland has a 4 right now. Seattle's right. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say Vancouver. They have like the game in hand. They need to pounce.
Vancouver has
Pounce
two
doesn't help.
games in hand right now.
Yeah, so then they need to start kind of focusing. It's like, hey, if you're gonna win, use those last 5 minutes to run up the score a little.
Yeah, but so does Sporting Houston and FC Dallas right now. They have
Well,
games in hand as well. So
oh, never
you know,
mind then.
you gotta see where things are at. It's getting there. The Atlanta's making things interesting. They could seriously, if Chicago and Columbus falter a little bit more, you could see Atlanta go all the way up as high as third, possibly even battle with New York City FC for the second spot. At Toronto, pretty much, as long as they keep doing what they've been doing, are unreachable here. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
think about this. Going back to what I said at the beginning, if you're 2 or 3 in Atlanta, that guarantees you a home playoff game.
oh
Do
yeah,
you do you really want to have to go to Atlanta, especially to Atlanta for a knockout match? Not now.
no. And Atlanta has the most games of hand of any team in MLS. They still
Oh,
have three
oh
more.
God.
So yeah, and I think I did mention that most of those games are at home for them, including the
Oh,
one coming up on the weekend against Orlando that we already talked about. So yeah, it's just really interesting times here for MLS as they get into the nitty gritty part of the season. I should note that your boy Kyle Laren, he is still getting offers from teams. By the
no.
way, to get sent off to another part of the world, and he is now getting some feelers from Leeds United, according to the Sun on Sunday. So interesting
Mm.
times. Of course, Canadian teammate Junior Hoylett is doing fantastic so far at Cardiff. So, and Leeds is right there, 2 points behind them.
Uh, if he goes there and they wind up getting promoted, I can live with that. I can actually live with that. I didn't think I'd be saying this, but with the chaos with Orlando this season, I'm at the point where I'm just like, maybe I should just break down and wish him well and cast him off. And if you love something, you set it free and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Uh, let's hope for you that Kyle Laren stays. Just because they need him.
At this point, I don't know. It's like he could go over there, do well, and I wouldn't make near as many Leeds United jokes as I could right now. Or he stays here, and I wind up continuing to scream and throw things at the TV because Orlando's doing terrible. I don't know what to do.
Hey, Orlando beat DC, so that's something.
Yeah, Sean, really, really.
Hey, DC, you wanted DC to lose, right?
Yeah,
So
and now they start. Ben, just for the love of God, just stop. Just rip my heart out already, would you? You. D- I need another drink. I just need another drink. They're supposed to lose. They win. Then they finally get a taste of winning, and then they. I just don't get it. I don't get it. They're torturing me, man. They're torturing me.
I'm sorry. Well, you were talking about drinking earlier. Major League Soccer now has an official wine of MLS. as they have entered a multi-year sponsorship deal with Excelsior Wines, and Argentina's Trivento is now the official wine of MLS. The deal starts January 1st, 2018, goes to 2020. And yeah, you got a lot of Argentinian players in MLS, so.
Why the hell? I never heard of these wines.
Do you not like South American imports very much?
Well, I mean, it depends, because if they bring in some more of the sweeter varieties, because that's kind of my preference.
I'm not a big wine person, so.
Any sommeliers, tweet me at Squid Sportshead. I need some education on this.
I need to get you to talk to my dad. He loves wine. So, if you ever have a question, I can just send him a text. Probably.
Yeah, I might have a couple of questions in this case. I might take you up on that.
Speaking of Argentinians, LAFC added another Argentinian, making it their second player that they have on their squad. Rodrigo Pacheco, 21 years old, from Atlético Lanús. He signed a one-year loan with a deal option to buy. He helped Atlético Lanús recently get a 1-0 victory against Atlético Banfield in El Clásico del Sur. So
yeah, and Lanús, they've always been one of those teams, a little bit better than the also-rans, but never really consistently breaking the block. But this, again, another good signing in my mind by LAFC. They keep meaning business.
I agree. Yeah, it's we saw again Tata Martino made the smart decision to go to South America and get big players. Jose Martinez, Miguel Miron have been absolutely fantastic. Villalba as well. So, they set the trend. And now it looks like LAFC is sort of following that as well.
The Galaxy better be careful, otherwise they're going to turn to the LA Clippers of soccer.
Ouch. LA Clippers of soccer. Oof.
Hey, come on now. The Clippers had a window to try to take over the town. They didn't. And now, if LAFC keeps this up, the Galaxy's window may be closing.
What do you think about New York City FC saying that they have 35 sites that they have looked at for a potential stadium?
And what sort of radius?
Well, they remember their whole idea was that they wanted inside the 5 boroughs at one point, and now they probably cast a wider net at this point.
Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. How wide?
It's just like, my goodness, 35 sites?
What are you trying to do? Trying to be like the Giants in the 70s and playing at the Yale Bowl in Connecticut? What you up to? What you got going on?
Don't know, but yeah, interesting. We talked about it in our chat, but we have not talked about it here on the show. Jeff Cameron, of course, injured, expected only to miss 2 weeks, so he should be okay. But not such good news for Jordan Morris and now Bobby Wood as well. Jordan Morris is expected to be out weeks with strained hamstring.
Oh, no. Oh.
And the U.S. are also hoping that the nick that Bobby Wood picked up is not too serious either. That means the U.S. would be down 2 forwards going into those crucial games against Panama and Trinidad and Tobago.
Oh, crap. It's crap.
Yeah, because strained hamstrings, those are not those
When
easy
the
to.
when the vast majority of what you have to do for your sport is run, strained hamstrings are extremely bad.
And that's what Jordan Morris basically is there to do, is run and cause problems for the defense going forward. I mean, so that's a problem. That's his whole MO, is outrunning people and getting to the ball. And
Well, Bruce, what you own do now?
well, got a Josie out the door and somebody. Maybe Dempsey has to
Or
start.
probably break down and do some sort of 4-5-1.
Probably. You know how that goes.
Mm.
We'll see. They might still do the two strikers.
Well, yeah, because I've always said you need two strikers, but
I don't know. I still think sometimes the Josie works better with somebody in behind him, and maybe you got to play Josie and then have Palustas behind him or something.
that could work.
And finally, Eric Palmer Brown goes from Sporting Kansas City to Manchester City. Wow, what a coup for him. Now he's going to get loaned out, obviously, in January, but
Yeah,
still
so
cool. Cool
he'll
for
be
him,
wearing. He won't have to get too used to wearing a ever so slightly different shade of light blue, but good for him.
Yeah, he's only 20. He's going to finish out the season with Sporting KC, and then he's going to join Man City in January. He's then expected to spend the rest of 2017-2018 on loan. So, I mean, he was fantastic in the under-20s, in the CONCACAF Championship, and in the World Cup itself. So, just the only thing I'm questioning is why Manchester City took so long.
Well, because look at what Manchester City's already got. They're probably trying to set up the deal. It's like, okay, who are we going to really loan him out to so that way we can get him back?
Yeah, they certainly, I mean, at least for the right back and left back, they signed 3 of those in the offseason. So they've got that short up. Now they want to make sure that they get the center part of their their back line set up for the future. Good thoughts on Man City there. As much as it pains me to say anything good about Man City, being both of us being United fans, but it is what it is.
I never said I was saying anything good about them. Let's not get carried away here.
Let's end with this. The English Premier League becomes the first European league to declare the transfer deadline day is going to be before the season starts. The word is that a lot of other European leagues are going to do the same thing. I like this. I like it. I hate the fact that you can't go into a season and know who's going to be on your squad because somebody else might be moving out or coming in, and it's like it's pointless to do a season preview or whatever because some teams, they just, that extra player that they get or extra couple of players they get in that 1 month or whatever can sometimes make the difference. And then you got the chemistry issues and all that stuff too. I've actually been wishing they had this before, but I'm glad that they're finally deciding that this needs to get done.
I mean, I've kind of come around to it myself because you've still got the chaos of the January, that particular transfer window. And if you have the summer window closed before your season starts, now you can only imagine what's going to happen during that window because you really have a clearer picture what you need, what you don't, what is working, what isn't. So that's really going to benefit because it's going to become now a true mad rush as everybody tries to figure out the second halves of their seasons.
Well, remember too, the EPL is the one that starts the earliest. The rest of them start a little bit later. So EPL
Mm-hmm.
is going to close on their end, but you could still have, let's say, Coutinho's situation. You could still have 1 or 2 weeks where Coutinho rumors are going to be flying out the door because the Spain window wouldn't close. And at least for another week, if not more. So, that's something to consider too. That England's going to have to worry about that you're going to be the first one to close, but you could still lose players to other leagues, and you started play earlier. So those leagues that have not might look at some of your players on week 1, week 2, and go, these guys look pretty good here. Let me see if we can send in an offer.
Yeah, and that you're going to get some very interesting kind of, I'm going to say it like this, poaching situations when you put it that way. Because England's known for taking more extended breaks, especially due to their winters being a little more hard.
Well, no, England is the one that doesn't take the break.
No, well,
remember, they play the day after Christmas. They play New Year's.
well, yeah, they
all
play.
that.
Well, they do play Boxing Day and stuff, but they also have to account, especially more in recent years, issues with weather and having to change matches around. So
right,
that comes to
but
play a
Spain,
bit.
Germany, Italy, they just take a 6-week break and say goodbye. England doesn't do that.
True.
So, hey, it's another factor there, right? When January comes around, all those other leagues get to look at that and go, this guy looks good, maybe we'll snag him or something. But all right, that's going to do it for us here talking soccer for Friday. We'll be back on Sunday giving you a wrap-up of MLS. NWSL is obviously on break because they're on kind of international break right now. And, yeah, whatever else has been going on in the next 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, because I still have to debate whether I'm being unreasonable or not. I'm confused.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So you have a thing about top 11?
Yes. Now, with top 11, and this is good timing because I'm just wrapping up my second full season in charge, as I started playing during the middle of the season, and this is my third season altogether. Now, as a quick story, my first year, I took over a 500 team. Okay. Wound up finishing in the final 17 league matches. 12 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses, got them up to third place and in the Champions League. My first full season in the league, 20 wins, 5 draws, and a loss the final match day of the season. I won going away. Lost the Champions League final in a late penalty.
Oh, my God.
And got to the round of 16 in the Cup tournament, tying on aggregate 2-2, but losing on away goals. You would agree that's a pretty good year.
That's a damn good year.
Now I get to this season in the league with 1 match day left, 22 wins, a draw, and 2 losses. I've both losses to what is the league winner. So I'm in second place. Got to the Champions League again, obviously. Went from better in group from 5-1 last time to now 6-0, but got knocked out 2-1 on aggregate in the quarterfinals to the eventual Champions League winner. I got knocked out again in the round of 16 in the Cup, but lost 8-2 on aggregate, and that was to a Cup semifinalist. Am I being unreasonable to be kind of disappointed?
I don't think you're being unreasonable. But, I mean, you know how many people wish they could do all that?
Yeah, and I mean, right now, I've got a league title, a Champions League final appearance under my belt, and in about 2.5 total seasons, I've won about 75 games, drawing 15, losing like 14. I just feel weird because it's like with how close I came to doing all this, one match away from an unbeaten league season, and just a hair's breadth from at least forcing extra time in the Champions League final, I just not even getting to the semifinals and kind of stagnating in the cup tournament and then running in only one buzzsaw in the league but not being able to do anything with that. I just feel weirdly disappointed.
I mean, I can understand being disappointed by it, but I just feel like you did a lot in that time. It just, you will, if you go through and don't meet those expectations again in this year, then I would understand. Yeah, totally be disappointed.
Yeah. And see, you laugh about the exclamation, but it's a proven winner.
Hey, sometimes what works in a video game does work in real life for the most part, though. There's a reason why it's called a video game.
Well, all I'm saying is if there were some nations, even the mailmen, I reach out to you. I will give you a proper nickname if you were to try it, at least in a friendly. That's a peace offering.
All right, you've heard it. Do it. Make it happen. All right, I think that does it for us here on this one. Like I said, we'll be back on Sunday. If you like what you heard, please let us know by hitting that subscribe button. That always helps us more than anything. Also writing those reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, iHeartRadio, where you can listen to us is now as well, and all the To the Max podcasts are now on iHeartRadio. So if you like more of what we do, Erik is on with me with the football To the Max. We got the wrestling one as well. Video games will be coming back pretty soon. And yeah, so hopefully you guys are listening to everything. Subscribe to that WTM network. Visit WTMnet.com. Until Sunday night, Monday morning. We'll see you later, everybody.
Peace.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.